Did you know that since the beginning of 2024, there's been a huge increase, a spike actually, in new foreclosure filings from banks against people who cannot afford to pay their mortgages? This has caused a panic among a lot of people who are now online looking for information on how to stop foreclosure. Now, there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of stuff online that's not true on how to stop foreclosure. I'm a foreclosure attorney. I've been doing this for many, many years, and I'm going to talk to you about the top foreclosure myths and how to avoid them and how maybe you can save your home.
No te preocupes, que yo siempre de quererte, de amarte y admirarte, hay amor. No te preocupes.
When somebody is faced with a foreclosure, there is a sense of panic and a sense of hopelessness that comes over the person because they're saying, wow, I'm going to lose my home. That's not always the case. But I'm going to tell you that many times people use that panic against you, people who are unscrupulous. There's individuals out there who will offer foreclosure rescue schemes and things that are designed not necessarily to help you, but to take money from you, and in many cases, take your home. Now, I'm going to go over the myths. I'm going to tell you some things here that you need to understand before you get yourself into a situation where you lose your home or lose money and lose your home due to these foreclosure scams. The number one thing you need to understand is refinancing is highly unlikely, or basically impossible when you have a foreclosure. Banks will not refinance your house no matter how much equity you have, no matter how good your credit was, and no matter what your income was when the foreclosure started, because there are rules against that. Banks cannot willy-nilly refinance a property that's in distress. It's called a mortgage in distress. Distressed mortgages, basically, there's a bright line, no refinancing. The only way to refinance a mortgage that's in distress like this is by using a private lender. I don't always recommend using private lenders, but they are out there. There's people that are called hard money lenders. That's another term for them. There's people that lend you money to get you out of foreclosure. Be extremely careful with those, because those people, in essence, have a two-pronged business plan. Number one, to make high interest rate off you, and also if you fail to pay, they get your house. So be really careful with hard money lenders, but that is a possibility. Normal banks will not refinance you, so I wouldn't even waste any time with that. The second thing is the forbearance. Second myth. Now, when you get into a forbearance, it feels really good because basically the bank says, hey, you're fine. Don't pay for a couple months, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is. And for that time period, you're having a great time because you're not having to pay your mortgage. You think you've solved your problem. The problem is that when you go into a forbearance, the bank's going to want you to repay all those months you didn't pay very quickly, sometimes over 12 months, which means that your payment is going to go up when you go back into repayment. Also, your credit's going to be shot because that shows up in your credit as mortgage and forbearance. So it's going to affect your other credit cards and your other debts. So be really careful with forbearance. Forbearance should only be used as a last resort, and full well knowing that you're going to have to pay more money when the forbearance ends. The forbearance does not lower your payments forever. It only eliminates payments and forbears, which means to stop your payment for a few months until you get yourself back on your feet, and then you can start repaying. However, your payment will go up, so you got to be really careful. Third myth is government assistance. There was a time a couple years ago where there was all these beautiful government assistance programs that gave money to homeowners that were in distress and that helped them try to get out of foreclosure. That's all gone. There are some small programs here and there. Sometimes the state of Florida has some stuff. There's different things that states might offer to give you small amounts of money, but you need to be super proactive with that. You need to be applying immediately upon distress when you think you're not going to be able to make your payments. You don't want to wait until you've stopped making your payments, because it might be too late at that point. Your foreclosure might have started, and then you're not going to be able to catch up. So look into the government programs that exist in your state, but don't rely on that, because that is not the silver bullet. It was for a little while. There's something called HALF that did help a lot of people, but that's all gone now, and there's no more money for that in most places. The last thing and the biggest thing and the one thing you could probably get out of this is a loan modification. Now, loan modifications have extremely good benefits to them because basically you get a new mortgage. In essence, the bank says, okay, we're going to modify your loan, extend it out to 40 years, put some money on the back end, all's forgiven, just keep making your payments. However, there's a big asterisk to this. The current loan modifications increase the interest to the current interest rate. If you bought a property in the last 10 years, your interest rate is going to be higher in this loan modification than most likely than what you were paying originally. That means your payment might be more than what you were paying before. And in many cases, these banks have rules against doing that. They will not give you a loan modification if your payment goes up. So it's not the silver bullet. You should apply for it and see what happens. Hopefully your bank gives you a lower payment and a payment that you can afford, but don't rely on this and don't expect this. Do not expect to get a loan modification you can afford because many times you don't get it. I'm not saying in all cases. I'm telling, if you have to apply, you have to apply. I do a lot of loan modifications for my clients and most of the time it works out, but not every time. Many times the banks say no because the payment goes up, or they give you it's basically a loan modification that has nothing to do with your income, but the person can't pay it because the payment is so much higher than it was. And it's basically simple math. Sometimes the debt is so high that when they spread it out over a certain number of years, the interest rate that's higher now increases exponentially the payment, and therefore you can't afford it. So that is the biggest asterisk with loan modification. So what's the answer? We're not here just to depress you and to say there's no answer. There are answers. What I would say to somebody in that situation is don't despair. There's a combination of things you can use to try to save your home. I would tell you that even though the last part there I talked a little bit bad about loan modifications are good things, but you need to be aware that you might be faced with a higher payment. So if I would apply for loan modification immediately, I would tell the bank what's going on in your life and apply. Communication with the bank is the key to saving your home for the big banks. And if you have a small bank or if you have a private lender, that's a different situation. But for a big bank, communicate with them early. They might be able to help you. They're not there to trick you. There's a bunch of government rules that force these banks to try to work with you. So it's not like it was before where the banks would do whatever they want. There's actually rules and regulations to stop that. But you need to be proactive. It's up to you to save your home. And no one else is going to do this for you. So again, my name is Diego Mendez. I'm a bankruptcy, loan modification, foreclosure lawyer here in Miami. I've been doing this for many, many, many years. I've had thousands of clients. I'm trying to help you. I also represent people buying foreclosures. So I do both sides of this. But my initial goal is that if you can avoid foreclosure, please do everything you can to avoid foreclosure. And if you cannot avoid foreclosure, don't let it go to auction. Sell your home, get some money out of it, and move on with your life because there is life after foreclosure.
No te preocupes, que yo siempre de quererte, de amarte y admirarte, ay amor. No te preocupes.